Have you ever noticed some people barely exist on social media? No selfies, no daily stories, no life updates. While everyone else shares everything, they choose complete silence. Maybe you've thought about them before, that they're distant, too private, or even a little strange. But here's the interesting part. Psychology doesn't see them that way, because not posting anything is rarely random. It's usually a very conscious choice. And sometimes it says more than people who post every day, about how they see themselves, about how they see the world, and maybe it's explaining you, too. Imagine this. You're scrolling like usual, story after story. You see friends traveling, showing off achievements, updating every moment of their lives. Everything feels present. Then suddenly, you remember someone. Someone who never posts. No photos, no updates, no sign they even exist online. No one knows what they're doing. No one knows how their life is going. But in real life, they're fine. Maybe even more at peace. And that's where it gets strange. We're used to thinking people who post a lot are living more, and those who stay silent must be lacking something, confidence, or something worth sharing. But what if that assumption is completely wrong? What if not posting isn't a lack, but a choice? So the real question is, why do some people not need to be seen? Is it withdrawal? Or a different kind of confidence? And more importantly, if you're like them, what does that actually say about you? There's something you've probably done without even realizing it. You post a photo. Then later, you check it again. How many likes? Who commented? Who viewed your story? You don't say it out loud, but you care. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is wired that way. Every time you get attention, your brain gets a small reward, a little dopamine, a sense of validation. And slowly, you get used to the loop. Post, wait, feel good, repeat. But there's a group of people who don't play that game. They don't post, don't update, don't seek reactions. Not because they have nothing to share, but because they don't need that validation. In psychology, this is called self-validation, the ability to recognize your own worth. They don't need someone to say, "You're doing great." They already know. Sounds simple, but it's rare, because most of us measure ourselves through others. You post a great photo, you feel more valuable. No engagement, you start doubting yourself. But people who don't post, their value isn't external. It comes from how they see themselves. They can achieve something and tell no one. Have a great day and not prove it. Their happiness doesn't need an audience. And here's the interesting part. It doesn't mean they don't care. They feel everything like everyone else, but they don't depend on attention to feel enough. Maybe you felt this before. You did something good. No one knew, but you still felt satisfied. That feeling is quiet, solid, not loud, but real. That's self-validation. And once you get used to it, you stop needing to post it to prove it. You live your life, not the version on display. And maybe that's why they seem more peaceful. Because they don't live to be seen. They live to actually experience. Here's something most people don't realize. Every time you post something, you're not just sharing information, you're opening your emotions. A photo can bring compliments, but also silence, or worse, judgment. And your brain remembers all of it. A random comment, a comparing glance, a small misunderstanding. Those things stay longer than you think. Because the human brain is sensitive to social evaluation. It treats judgment like a mild threat. So every time you share, you step into an emotional risk zone. You may not notice it, but you feel tired. That's why some days you post and feel empty after. Not because the post was bad, but because your energy was drained. And this is what non-posters understand deeply. They know the more you share, the easier you get pulled into comparison. You see others doing better. You start comparing. You see others succeeding more. You start doubting. Even if before you were completely fine. So they choose differently. They keep their life out of public view, not because they're hiding, but because they want control. Control over how they're seen, and more importantly, how they feel about themselves. Think about this. Some things, when kept private, stay peaceful. But once you share them, they start to change. You start thinking, what will people think? You edit the story, edit the emotion, and slowly, the experience isn't pure anymore. These people avoid that. They protect their experiences from outside interference. They understand privacy isn't distance. It's emotional control. Maybe you've done this. You had an important plan but told no one. Not out of fear, but to stay focused, uninfluenced. It's the same mechanism. When you reduce outside eyes, you keep inner clarity. And maybe that's why they seem calmer. Not because life is simpler, but because they don't let too many people into their emotional space. People often think those who don't post just don't like social media, or they can't keep up. But the truth is, many of them understand it too well. They know exactly what it does to the human mind, and this changes everything. Social media doesn't reflect real life. It reflects what's chosen to be shown. The best moments, the best version, the most edited story. You don't see bad days or exhaustion or self-doubt. You only see the outcome. And your brain doesn't register that it's curated. It compares directly. Psychologists call this social comparison. You see others and unconsciously measure yourself. And the more you look, the more you feel lacking, less successful, less interesting, less enough. Even if before you were fine. That's the trap. You're not comparing real life to real life. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlights. And you always lose that game. People who don't post see this early. They recognize the illusion, and they make a different choice. They don't try to win the comparison game. They step out of it. Not because they have nothing to show, but because they refuse to let their value be defined by a distorted system. Maybe you've felt this. You scroll for a while and suddenly feel behind, even though minutes ago you were fine. That's not reality. That's the effect. And once you see it, everything shifts. You stop trying to prove, stop competing silently. You just want to live your life without constant comparison. And maybe those silent people aren't less at all. They're simply not playing the same game. And here's what most people misunderstand. People who don't post aren't hiding. They're not disappearing. They just don't need to appear. In a world where everything is displayed, silence looks like absence, but in reality, it can be a very clear choice. Let's connect it all. They don't need external validation because they already have it inside. They keep life private to protect their emotions. And they understand social media is a curated game. Put these together, and you see a very different kind of person. They don't live to be seen. They live to feel. They don't need the spotlight. They don't measure worth by attention. They don't need to prove. because they know who they are. In psychology, this is called quiet confidence, a calm kind of certainty, not loud, but unshakable. And ironically, these people are often misunderstood, seen as cold or distant. But really, they just don't depend on other people's gaze. They don't need to be seen to feel valuable. And maybe that's the rarest kind of freedom. So maybe the issue was never that they don't post. Maybe it's how we interpret their silence. We're used to thinking if you're not visible, you're missing out. But maybe you're actually holding on to something deeper. Peace, clarity, and a sense of enough within. People who don't post don't live less. They just don't turn their life into something that needs proof. They experience first, show later, or not at all. And maybe that's why they seem lighter, less pressure, less comparison, because they don't live under constant observation. So next time, when you see someone who never posts, don't assume they're disappearing. Maybe they're just living their life in the most real way possible. And the real question is, are you living to experience or living to be seen? If you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe